Technical foul. Yeah. Hey guys, what is up? Welcome to another episode of Teed Up. I'm David.
I'm Justin.
As always, we appreciate you tuning in. Hope everyone's doing well. Hope everyone's staying safe. Justin, how you doing, man?
Doing pretty well, just been grinding at work and hopefully going to be watching some basketball in the next couple of days. So I'm excited.
Definitely looking forward to that. I see you got the dope Lower Merion jersey on.
Yes, I do. The Kobe Bryant Lower Merion jersey.
And homage to Bean. I got it up on the wall right there. I don't know if you can see that. So yeah.
I had to get the Lower Merion jersey though because I couldn't wear the Lakers one. Like, I feel like the Lower Merion one has to fit just because we're from Philly.
Yeah, no, definitely. That's like
better.
That's like an essential jersey to have as a
Philly
sports
guy.
fan.
Yeah,
absolutely,
exactly.
Absolutely. I do wear his Lakers stuff, and that's the only exception I do.
There's nothing wrong with it.
No, not at all. But that's the only exception I make personally when like wearing other teams' gear.
I think it's fine if you're wearing it for the player, but not for the team. Like, you can't be like wearing it and saying like you can't be wearing like a Lakers LeBron jersey and saying you're just a Lakers fan and wearing it. But if you're wearing it to support LeBron, then I'm okay with it.
I would agree with that. Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, I'm pretty damn hyped right now because we are one day away from games that actually matter.
Less than 24 hours from right now.
Less than 24 hours. The scrimmages were nice. Don't get me wrong. I was very thankful for having the scrimmages. But right now, this is like the real deal. The 8 games that determine how the playoffs are gonna accumulate.
Mm-hmm.
So this is how you start off with the first 2 games, one being the Jazz versus the Pelicans, which I think is stupid because Zion's not even playing. And I hate when the NBA does that. They always do that with the Pelicans where they revolve a game around just one player. You know what I mean?
Yep. And then when the player's not playing, it ruins the whole game. It's just a bad quality game though, because like I assume Zion's not playing, and then you get the Jazz who are without Bogdanovic and Ingles, so it's like it's just not that exciting of a first game. I'd rather have the Lakers-Clippers game first because I think that's more exciting.
Absolutely. But the NBA doesn't want to listen, and they made the schedule easier for the Pelicans so they could have Zion in the playoffs.
Of course.
Even though the guy's only played 19 games and he's just overrated. I don't have a problem with him personally. It's just I just hate how people
are overhyping him too early. Like, yes, he has the potential to be so good, but has he become that good yet? Absolutely not. It's only been 20 games.
Absolutely not. But yeah, so the first game will be the Jazz versus the Pelicans. Then at 9:30, 9 o'clock, we have the Lakers and the Clippers, which everyone's looking for.
East Coast.
9 o'clock East Coast, so 6 o'clock West Coast for all you Cali people out there, enjoying the sun and not enjoying the non-humidity. Sucks. The humidity's been awful.
Oh, brutal. Terrible.
Especially when you have a black car with a black steering wheel.
Ooh, that's terrible.
It's terrible. But yeah, anyway, Lakers and Clippers. But Justin, I remember, before the season started, you were saying the Clippers are your pick for the finals, and that there's no way just because of the depth that they have versus the Lakers.
Yep.
Well, one thing I wanted to bring up is this whole situation with the Clippers. The Lakers got two good pieces back. They got J.R. Smith and Dion Waiters, and then the Clippers are losing players because you have Landry and Ivica Zubac, who left, I believe due to family emergency reasons. And then you had Lou Will go to this gentleman's club because it's his favorite restaurant.
Yeah.
So Lou Will had a fun night. He was hanging out with Jack Harlow, which, by the way, that remix to "What's Poppin'" is perfect.
Remix is very good. The first song, it's solid, but not anything special. But the remix is very, very good.
Yeah, and the fact that Lil Wayne still has it, and he's been rapping for 15 years, 16 years.
Very impressive.
Top 5 rapper of all time. But Justin, what are your thoughts now? You've been saying the Clippers are better than the Lakers. Now it's seeming like the Clippers aren't really coming together with their depth.
All right, so yes, I've been all aboard the Clipper train since Kawhi and Paul George have landed there, and I'm still on it, but I'm half a step off now. I'm not completely sold just because I'm not sure what's going to happen here. If they get the 2 seed here and are able to manage it throughout these 8 games, I think the Clippers will still be able to make a deep run. I think the difference is going to be, do they have to play the Houston Rockets in the first round? Because if they have to play the Rockets in the first round, I think they'd lose that matchup without Lou Will and all those other guys. I just don't think they'd be able to keep up. But they'd at least make it a very tough series for the Clippers. So that's not good for them. Without the depth, it scares me now. There's still a very deep team. I don't know if you've been watching the Clippers games, but you got guys like Joakim Noah filling in. He's looking like his old self out there. You got Morris off the bench. You got JaMychal Green. You still got these other key players that have experienced the playoffs that can kind of contribute here. So I'm not too worried. I'm more so worried about the scoring off the bench. Like Lou Will is that guy that can like get you a bucket when you need a bucket. And I know Paul George and Kawhi can do that, but when they're not out there, who's that guy that's going to be able to do that? So I'm a little worried there. Now, if they're still able to manage the 2nd seed by the time Lou Will is able to get back, I'm all aboard the Clippers hype train again. But if they fall out of the 2nd seed and get a Houston Rockets in the first round, I'm going to be pretty worried as a Clippers fan. Well, I'm not Clippers fans, but Clippers fans should be worried.
Yeah, absolutely. And so the players that they've lost is Landry Shamet. Well, at least he's questionable for tomorrow's game against the Lakers, which you might think, oh, well, it's just one game. Well, they only have 8 games to determine their seeding, so this is very important for the Clippers. So you lose so Landry's questionable, then you have Avante Zubac being questionable, and then you don't even have Montrezl Harrell, Pat Bev, or I believe Lou Will's also questionable. He has to quarantine for 14 days.
Lou Will is out, but I think Pat Bev is questionable.
Pat Bev is questionable.
I think he just returned. I'm not sure how the quarantine days work there, but he's questionable, I'm pretty sure.
So it's going to be tough for the Clippers, and I think Kawhi and Paul George especially Paul George, has to step up.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Especially with how much he's been lacking recently. I think Paul George has to step up mightily.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we saw in the scrimmage, Paul George was looking like his old self out there. So if you gotta get that Paul George, I'm not too worried on the depth end. But because they still have a couple guys that can contribute, and the Lakers' depth isn't that good to begin with, so I'm not too worried there. I think it's more even now than it was before. So I'm not worried. I'm just not as confident. You know what I mean? Like I'm not
right.
Before I was 100%, 120% on board with the Clippers, but now I'm probably 90% on. There's just a little bit of worry in me that they may not be able to get it done because of this. Like, I think they're just not taking it as seriously as they should. Like, these guys say they have family matters. I don't know what it really is. They could just be making some excuse for it. I'm not accusing them of that, but it could be something like that. Maybe they just don't want to be in the bubble right now, and they view these 8 games kind of just as pointless. Who knows? But we'll see. Lou Will going to the Magic City was very disturbing in my opinion because I just don't understand why he would do that. I get why he left the bubble. I'm sad.
He just went to get some food, yo.
I know. I understand why he left because he wanted to go he wanted to go to the funeral. I think it was his grandfather's, I believe he said. So I understand why he left, and I'm like sympathetic for that. But at the same time, he could have just went to the funeral, paid his respects, and then hop back on a flight and go back down to the bubble or drive or whatever he did to get there. Why do you have to go get the food? And why do you have to go inside the building and go in there to get it? Why couldn't he just if he wanted the food that bad, couldn't he get it delivered or picked up from the outside? Why do you have to go in? Like, there's just some things that are just kind of selfish, and that was one of them.
I mean, to be honest, do you really think he went inside there to get some food?
I think he did, but he was there for more than food. Like, I think food was a reason. I mean, he's got a.
But then Jack Harlow was there, and then obviously we know how Matt.
Apparently, he was there because of he had connections to the funeral too. They came from the funeral together. That was what I heard.
Oh, okay. Well,
so that's why they were there. They went there, and I think they were just getting food, but then they ended up going inside, and it led to more. But yeah.
Yeah, but still, you had obviously Magic City being a gentleman's club, they had all the trying to keep this PG as possible, all the attractions there that they have. So I don't think it was just for food. I think it was for entertainment.
he does have a wing meal, wings, some like the sweet Lou Will wings or something. There's some name like that. He's got like wings named after him there that are like his favorites. I understand if he wanted to go get food there, but like, was there really the need to go do more than just food? Like, I just don't understand that part.
Absolutely. So yeah, as far as the Clippers, I think a couple guys have to step up in Trez's place, step up in Landry's place if he doesn't play. Like I think Ronnie McGruder has to have a bigger role on that team. I think Reggie Jackson has to have a bigger
Reggie
role. I think.
Jackson's a good one because I don't feel like people forgot that he was even on the team. Like, he was
Mhm.
kind of an underrated acquisition that they made, and people just don't even remember. Like, you bring up Reggie Jackson and Clippers, and like, when did Reggie Jackson get to the Clippers? Like, people don't even remember that. So I
Mhm.
think that's a very underrated move for them, especially if Pat Bev doesn't play.
And I like in the scrimmage against Sacramento, he had 11 points, shot 3 for 10. It's decent, but he's got to do more if
Mm-hmm.
all these players are going to be out. So
Agreed.
yeah, so yeah, definitely Reggie Jackson, Rodney McGruder. I think JaMychal Green has to step up a little bit more. I think definitely Terrence Mann has to step up a little bit more. Patrick Patterson. So
Joakim Noah's, I've been pleasantly surprised by Joakim Noah. He
absolutely,
kind of looks like his old self there. He's shooting efficiently from the floor, grabbing a bunch of boards, playing good defense. I've been pleased with how he's played. And I think if Zubac doesn't play and Harrell's not, or Trez is not there, I think he can be good enough to fill in. You know what I mean? He's not going to be the same level as Trez because Trez was averaging like 16 points. He was in six man of the year competition there. But I think he can be serviceable there for him.
absolutely. And I think Joakim Noah was hungry because he had that stint where he signed with the Knicks, wasn't feeling New
Mm-hmm.
York, went to the Grizzlies, wasn't I mean he did his thing there but now he's obviously in LA
Mm-hmm.
and he probably wants to put himself back on the map. These
Well,
kids,
if you've looked at him, he's got bigger shoulders, bigger biceps. He looks like a new man out there, and he looks like
Mhm.
he wants to prove something. So that's good for the Clippers at least.
Absolutely. And some of these young kids obviously we're young. I mean, we're 19,
Mm-hmm.
but younger than us, they don't remember Joakim Noah. They don't remember Chicago Joakim Noah, Justin.
No,
They
he
don't
was a
know.
problem.
They
He
don't
was
know
a
the half of it. He
problem.
was an absolute problem on the defense. His free throw and his jump shot were god awful.
Yeah, that's a different story.
The
But
the the two-hander tornado, I think they called it the tornado, where he was just
yeah,
uh, do that.
bad, ugly.
But as far as defense and just trash talk and just being grimy and getting in there in the paint, he was phenomenal. And I would say if you haven't heard of Joakim Noah or you think he's a scrub, definitely go watch the Chicago mixtape. I'm sure
Definitely.
there's probably a bunch on YouTube, but yeah. Let us know what you think about this whole Clippers situation. Let us know what you think about Lou Will's fun night out, getting some food.
Mm,
Definitely getting some food and doing nothing else. Just being a good man.
mm, definitely.
But yeah. So yeah, the Clippers are having some depth trouble, but the Lakers have been improving their depth, Justin. And that's the whole thing about you. You were saying the Lakers didn't really have a lot of depth, and
Mm-hmm.
now J.R. Smith's going off and Dion Waiters is going off. J.R. Smith versus Washington last scrimmage, he had 20 points, 5 rebounds, shot 66%. Dion Waiters 18 points, 3 rebounds, 6 assists. So they're doing pretty well. So what are your thoughts on the Lakers now and with the Clippers, with
There's
this whole Clippers situation with the Lakers?
I think the Clippers or the Lakers obviously now have a better chance than they had before because the Clippers are missing players. But I mean, I really wouldn't say it's much of an advantage because J.R. Smith, if you don't remember like watching TV, you'd watch like ESPN and there'd be the poster saying missing JR's jump shot during the playoffs every year almost. He goes cold a lot and he's hot right now. That's great. But what happens when he goes cold? Who are they going to turn to? Dion Waiters. Dion Waiters has had many issues with LeBron James himself. If you don't remember, he played with he played with LeBron in Cleveland back in the day, and there were a lot of issues. There were a lot of articles out there saying where Dion Waiters was calling LeBron selfish. They were going back and forth, having a lot of hate. They weren't really doing well together. So there's a lot of chemistry issues back there. I'm curious to see how they do together on the court because they looked good the first time, but they didn't. The last scrimmage, LeBron didn't play, so Dion was out there by himself. So I'm not sure how that will go. I'm still not sold. They're playing well, yes, but again, scrimmage game, Washington, like how much can you really take out of it? I'm not sure how you weigh these preseason games. I'm not sure how much you can actually take out of them. Like, yes, it's good and you want to see good individual performances, but at the same time, like how much can you take? Like it's a tough thing to judge, and I'm happy for them because they're playing well, but how well will they really play when the games actually matter? And I think that's a big thing you got to worry about. And you got guys like Kyle Kuzma there who's dropping 25 points as well in the games. So what if these guys think they're hot now? When they go cold, are they gonna just stop shooting? What if they keep shooting the ball? Then the Lakers get into an issue where these guys are all going 3 for 12 each down the court, and they're missing all these shots, and that kills them. So I'm not sold on it yet. I kind of want to see them in more action, especially because JR hasn't played competitive basketball in 2 years. I want to see what happens when he's playing in a true, meaningful basketball game. Like, not even these regular season games. I want to see him in a postseason game. Because if the Lakers have to rely on JR and Dion or Kyle Kuzma to win them basketball games, that's where they're going to struggle. If they're in the game and these guys are kind of making them like better, then that's great. But if they're in there making them worse, I'm going to be worried, you know?
It's you bring up them not playing for 2 years. I think that's the fact that they're able to put up near 20 points. I mean, JR did put up 20 points, and Dion put up 18. The fact that they're still able to do that after not playing basketball for a while
That was
competitively.
without LeBron and AD, though. LeBron and AD are going to be taking shots away from them there, so they're definitely not going to put up that many numbers.
Right, but they're
that
still.
many points again.
I still think that they'll be able to get around like 11 points. I mean, they'll still be able to contribute. They'll still be a shooter, and they're not. I don't think that they're going to rely on J.R. Smith and Dion Waiters. Obviously, the Lakers are going to rely on who? Mr. Fine Wine himself, and the MVP of the league, LeBron Ramon James.
Yes, they're going to rely on him, but if they're coming down the stretch of the game and they're relying on JR and Dion to keep them in the game with their threes, that's going to be an issue because there's no like consistency there with their threes. They're on or off, and if they're both off at the same time, that's going to cause some issues there. But if they're relying on them to put them ahead, like the Lakers are already up 5, and they're relying on them to kind of give them a boost, yes, that's fine. But if you're relying on them, they're down 3 points, you need a big three. I'm not sold on either one of them.
But I think when they need a big three, I think they'll go to Danny Green before they go to J.R. Smith or Dion Waiters.
Danny Green's minutes have been down. I'm not sold on it. He hasn't been playing well in the preseason either here. So again, it's preseason. How much can you take from it?
Exactly. That's exactly how much can you take from it. I think during the 8 games he'll show up, but I think that when you need a big three, you look at Danny Green, you'll look at maybe LeBron, even you'll look at those guys. So I think there's nothing really to worry about in Lakerland. I think J.R. Smith and Dion Waiters are doing phenomenal. I think they're going to really contribute with this Lakers team when the games start actually mattering and the games actually start to be more competitive, because they're not as competitive right now, but obviously they will be when it's the regular season and the playoffs.
No, yeah, I agree. I'm just worried because JR has a history of not showing up in the playoffs. Yes, he's hit a couple good shots, but like I said, you remember those posters going around on social media and on ESPN? You'd see the little flyer and it would have JR's face on it, and it'd be like missing JR's jump shot, and it's just the inconsistency there. I'm not sold on him. Like, he hasn't been in the league in 2 years. Yes, he had a good game, but is that going to translate into big moments in the NBA playoffs? I can't say yes.
I mean, yes, but at the same time, I think he's hungry. I think he wants to. He hasn't played for a while. Obviously, he hasn't played since 2018. So I think he'll be ready, and I think he's been getting ready. And I think these scrimmages are just they're just baby steps right now for J.R. Smith.
Interesting. I'm also worried about Dion. Like I said earlier, he's kind of struggled in the past with LeBron. I'm not sure how they will mix. I'm not sure if that will really mix when they try and keep Dion separate from LeBron. So when LeBron gets a rest, Dion's playing. Yeah, who knows? It'll be interesting to see. I think we haven't really seen full rotations yet, but I'm curious to see how it works, what the lineups are, and how they will fit in. Deion can play a little point guard, so maybe when LeBron's out, he's the guy bringing up the ball. Who really knows at this point? But we will find out.
I think one guy that does actually need to step up for when LeBron has to sit is Kostas Antetokounmpo.
That's an interesting thing. I think more Alex Caruso.
I think Kostas Antetokounmpo. I think Alex Caruso is just a meme. It doesn't really matter. But I think Kostas Antetokounmpo could really be a reliable player if he just steps up a little bit more. You know, I mean, he's been doing decent during these scrimmages. You know, he's a decent defender. He can drive. He's athletic. He can score. I mean, last scrimmage dropped 9 points, 3 for 8 shooting. But so I think if he gets a little bit more confidence in him, if he makes his damn free throws too, because he's horrible at the free throw line. I mean, when I watched him, that's the biggest. Yeah, because that's the biggest thing I've taken away from him is just the free throws, and that's very important.
That's another thing I was gonna bring up though. Like when you're in a playoff game, I don't know who's gonna be hitting their free throws because if LeBron's the guy with the ball bringing the point guard, I don't trust him to hit a clutch free throw. He's not that great of a free throw shooter. That guy's not a great free throw shooter either. So when you're looking at these guys, I'm not sure about that. Free throws could cost them because you in the playoffs, you need to get the free points when you can get them. So free throws are gonna be huge.
Well, yeah, you could do a lineup with like maybe Russo at the 1, Danny Green at the 2, probably KCP at the 3, Brown at the 4, and then this is just for free throws. Probably Markieff Morris at the 5. I know it's a small ball lineup, but if you need it
depends on who they're playing. If they're playing the Rockets, a small ball lineup like that could work. It depends on who they play.
That's true. So yeah, it'll be exciting to see. You know, I'm very excited for this Lakers team. They're still my pick to win the championship. And, you know, obviously, like what we talked about before, I'm not really that confident in the Clippers anymore, but who knows, honestly. Very excited for this matchup tomorrow night. It's going to be sick. I can't wait. I cannot wait because obviously we did miss one of the Clippers-Lakers matchups previously in January. So, yeah, so just to get this
up right here.
I can't wait for it. But, you know, moving on with the Clippers, we have this whole LeBron situation. And LeBron thinks that LeBron has said that he should be the MVP.
Mm-hmm.
And he's also said that he should get credit for playing in the West. Now, Justin, I already know you're going to go off on him.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if you want to go first.
I'll let you go first.
Appreciate it. So I think LeBron definitely should get credit for playing in the West. I think there's no doubt about it for playing in the West because everyone would always say, "Oh, LeBron just makes it to the finals because he just plays in the miserable East." Nah, 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 nah. Meanwhile, once he goes to the West, LeBron haters tend to say, "Oh, well, he just has an easy schedule." Nah, 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 nah. And
how did he do his first year in the West?
He was injured for a majority of the year.
13 games. He was injured.
He was injured. Yeah, but still, he was injured. He was injured. And then once he leaves the East gets a lot better. So was it that the East was just super weak, or was it just that LeBron was dominating the East so much?
Who was his biggest competition really in the East? Wasn't it probably you'd say Toronto Raptors for a while?
The Raptors, the Celtics, the Pacers.
How did Paul George do when he moved to the West his first time? How did he start doing out there? He wasn't nearly as dominant as he was in the East. How DeMar DeRozan? DeMar DeRozan was leading the Raptors to top 3 seed most of the time out in the East. What'd he do when he went to the West? He can't even lead the team to the playoffs. He went from leading the team to the 2 seed in the East to the 10th seed in the West. Clearly, the West is harder.
So Giannis isn't good because he plays in the East?
No, but I'm saying back then, clearly there's a difference. I would say the Eastern Conference back then was just weaker than it is now.
I don't think so. I think it was just because LeBron was so dominant that he made the East – he made it look easy, and he made the East look weak because of how dominant he was.
The comment that he was playing in the East or West shouldn't matter. It shouldn't have an effect on the MVP award. It was more of a – people would say LeBron – was playing in the East as an excuse for the fact that he made, was it 8 straight finals in the East, or was it 9? So it was one of those two.
It was 8.
They're making that excuse because They're saying that he shouldn't have made it 9 times like he did because it was so weak. It has nothing to do with him winning MVP. If you want to say he didn't win MVP because he was playing in the weak East, yeah, because he was the number 1 seed every year. He was resting half the time. So, of course, he's not going to win MVP. He wasn't playing all the games, and he wasn't going all the way. He was dominating his competition. He was sitting out in the fourth quarter. So, yes, that's an excuse for why he didn't win MVP back then, but it doesn't have anything to do with this MVP award. I think that's a dumb kind of contest. And when you're looking at the West this season, I don't think the West is that strong this year. You got the Clippers. That starting lineup has only played 11 games together. They're missing all these players. Paul George has been hurt. Kawhi's missed a bunch of games. All these guys have missed a bunch of games. You get down the list. Luka's been hurt. He hasn't played a full season. So they have the Pelicans in there, but the Pelicans aren't nearly as good as they should be because Zion's been hurt this whole year. Look at the Portland Trailblazers. Nurkic is hurt. And yeah, he missed the whole year. And Dame's been hurt a majority of the year too. So that's another 2 teams right there that have been hurt. And when you look at LeBron's first year in the West without a second star before he got hurt, they were the 6th seed in the West. So they weren't going to be no top seed in the West. Yes, he was able to get the top seed this year. That's with a Clippers team that wasn't healthy. You have other teams that aren't healthy, like the Pelicans and Trailblazers, who would have been contenders. The best team in the West the past 6 years, the Golden State Warriors, are now the worst team in the West. So they're not the same team they were. If they were in there, it would be a different story. Look how he did when the Warriors were healthy last year. The Warriors won, and he didn't. So that's another excuse for him there, why this doesn't matter. East versus West is not really a debate for an MVP award. The debate was for why he made 9 straight finals, and I think it was because it was so weak. And I think if you put another guy like a Kobe on that team, they would have made the same amount of finals.
I think LeBron haters like yourself just making any excuse for him to. I think it's
I'm
just
not a hater. I'm just not a
excuse.
fanboy. I keep it real.
At least I appreciate you saying fanboy instead of bronze sexual. We prefer
I know
that
you
term.
love that term.
We prefer the term fanboy. I would much I fanboy. Look at all these. I got a bunch of Slam magazines. A bunch of Slam magazines here, but the whole thing is, I don't think it was that the East was weak, because if you look at the East, it's full of all-stars. It's packed, and I think LeBron just made it look easy.
But look at the East this year. I think the Bucks would have given him if he was still in the East. I think the Bucks would have given him trouble.
Would have won against the Bucks.
I think the Bucks would be the number 1 team in the West. I think the Lakers probably would have came in at 2, but then you get a team like who else is there? You get the Celtics. I think the Celtics would be a top 3 team in the West right now. I think because the Clippers were hurt, I think the Celtics are a better team than the Nuggets and the Rockets, so I think they'd be up there. Who else you got? I mean, the Oklahoma City Thunder and Jazz were 4 and 5 in the West, so I don't really think like that's that impressive. What else? I think the Raptors, Sixers, I think any of those teams are they're basically just as talented as the top teams in the West. I don't think there's this big divide anymore. I think it's actually much more equal.
I don't think it was. I don't think there was a divide back when LeBron was in Cleveland.
Really? Because if LeBron was in the West, you think he would have made it all this time? Because realistically,
yes,
he would have had to go through the Golden State. He would have had to be playing the Golden State Warriors, who he lost to these times in the finals. Why would he beat them in the Western Conference Finals instead of the finals if he lost to them in the finals?
He would have won a couple. Maybe the Warriors would have won a couple as well, but LeBron definitely would have gotten past them and made it to the finals against the Golden State Warriors.
Yeah,
100%.
Like he did once, but I mean,
he did once, and then the Warriors got Kevin Durant and had formed a super team, had 4 All-Stars on their team. Nobody could beat them.
So if he was in the West, he wouldn't have won those championships because he lost them. So why would he wouldn't have made it out of the West? The West was stronger.
I think he would have gotten one.
He got one, so I'd give you one.
No, I'm saying with Kevin Durant. I'm saying with Kevin Durant, I think he would have beaten him.
I disagree.
He would have found a way.
I don't think so. He didn't in the NBA Finals, so I don't see why he would have in the Western Conference Finals.
Well, LeBron's got that like Rocky Balboa mentality. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, but what's the difference? You're actually playing in a lesser high intensity game, so I don't see why it would necessarily make that big of a difference.
I don't know. I mean, this is all, coulda, shoulda, woulda type of conversation. So, and we've been doing coulda, shoulda, woulda for the past couple months because there's no basketball, but now there actually is basketball.
Yeah.
I mean, the LeBron debate.
LeBron was in the media. He was talking about it and said he should win MVP and that he should get credit for being in the Western Conference now instead of the East, since that was an argument against him. But the argument wasn't for MVP. It was for the fact that he made so many straight finals appearances. That's what the East versus West argument was for. It had nothing to do with him winning MVP, because he should have won some MVPs back then. It had nothing to do with him in the East or the West. It just had to do with the fact that he was just robbed of the MVP. It had nothing to do with East versus West. East versus West was strictly for how many finals appearances he had gotten in a row, because that number would not be the same if he was playing in the West.
I don't know. I think, I mean, like, at the same time, what's he supposed to say? Yeah, the East was easy for me. I'm LeBron James. Yeah, the East was weak. That's why I went to the finals.
He made the comment about it. He was asked about MVP, and he made the comment about how he was playing the West, and that should be a boost. He didn't have to make that comment.
I think he's just confident, and I think that's just the whole LeBron mentality that he has.
I mean, I agree with him. I think he should win MVP, but I don't think he will. I think it goes to Giannis. I think Giannis is my pick. Like, if I wanted to pick a guy who I think will actually win, like what's my prediction? I think it's Giannis. But who do I think deserves it? It's LeBron.
I'm taking Bron all day. At least we found common ground there.
I think he was the most valuable. I mean, I understand the case against him just because, like, LeBron's only leading the Lakers in assists. AD has him in points, steals, rebounds, blocks. He has him in all the other categories other than assists. So I understand that. Meanwhile, Giannis is the team leader for everything else on the Bucks. So I understand why there could be an argument, but I just think LeBron is more valuable to that team.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I would agree with that. LeBron is more valuable to the Lakers.
Mm-hmm.
I think everyone agrees with that.
For once.
Absolutely, yeah. Surprise with a LeBron debate.
I know.
That's a shocker. That is a first. That is the first time that's happened in teed up history.
Yeah, it has.
Mm-hmm. So the next topic that we were going to get into, I'm not really looking forward to this.
Of course not.
Just go ahead, Justin. It's about James Harden. I'll sit back.
Have you seen skinny James Harden? Have you seen what he's doing? I know it's only preseason, but I mean, have you seen what he's doing?
I've seen it. What about it?
15 minutes, 25 and 10, 35 points this time, near triple-double. He's balling out. He's skinny now. He's going to be a problem for these teams, and I think the Rockets are contenders. They may be my pick to come out of the West now with the Clippers falling out. They may have just became my pick, just based on the fact that they have two of the best scorers in the NBA right now. When Harden isn't on, Westbrook's there to pick him up. Harden's not dropping 40 tonight? Okay, Russ will go out there and drop 40. Russ isn't dropping 40? Okay, Harden will pick it up. He'll drop 40. And you still got guys like Eric Gordon. Who else do they got there? Robert Covington can come up clutch for some threes. PJ Tucker. They still have other guys there that can hit their threes. And the way that system is worked up with the guys on the outside for the three-point shot, if those threes are falling, the NBA is in trouble because nobody can beat them when those threes are falling. They kind of remind me of the Golden State Warriors, how they're working with that small ball lineup with Draymond at center, with Stephen Clay. I think James Harden and Russell Westbrook could kind of make their own lineup work like that, with PJ Tucker at center, Robert Covington, Eric Gordon on the wings, Harden there for the catch out when Russ has the ball in isolation, Russ getting out in the fast break. I think there's a chance that could work.
Are you talking about his most recent scrimmage?
For who?
James Harden.
I'm talking about all the scrimmages.
All right, well, let's look at this most recent one against the Celtics. They won by 22.
Mm-hmm.
Impressive, right? Let me think.
I don't care. I don't care about the results.
Did Gordon about how the play. Okay, but he dropped 35, right? That's very impressive, right? Did Gordon Hayward play?
I don't know.
Did Enes Kanter play?
Enes Kanter should be the third string starter on that Celtics team.
Did Marcus Smart play? No.
Smart.
Did Jason Tatum play? Did Daniel Tice play? Did Kemba Walker play? Did pretty much the good.
You're bringing up the Lakers players against the Washington Wizards, who have everybody on the Boston Celtics is better than the Washington Wizards' best player.
Who played their but the Wizards actually put in their valuable players. The players that
the Wizards
actually
don't have any valuable players.
But they put in their actual team.
They don't even have any valuable players.
Man, I could drop 35 on the Celtics when Kemba, Gordon Hayward, and Jason Tatum aren't playing.
It doesn't matter. He still was able to do it, and he was efficient when he did it. That's the thing. It's one thing if you're out there dropping empty stats. They weren't empty stats. He was putting them up while being efficient from the field. He shot 62% from the field, 61 from three.
Against the G League 60
team. From the field. It was not the G League team. It was better team than half the teams in this tournament.
It was a G League team. They didn't play any of their valuable players.
Okay, then go back to the other
scrimmages.
I will. James Harden was still balling out consistently.
Dropped 31.
James Harden actually I don't understand. People like you just love to hate on James Harden, but it doesn't make sense. Because when Steph Curry revolutionized the game of basketball, everyone loved it. But when James Harden starts doing it with the step backs and all this other stuff, everyone hates him for it. Well, I don't understand. You get guys like Joel Embiid, Giannis imitating him with the pump fakes and drawing the foul now. They got that from James Harden. James Harden's the one that started all that. Now they all copy it, and everyone loves Giannis and Joel. But when Harden does it, Harden gets the hate. Harden gets unnecessary hate for no reason.
Because he doesn't do anything.
He doesn't do anything.
He always loses in the playoffs. It doesn't matter to the playoffs. So what? You drop 35.
How's Joel and Giannis done in the playoffs? Everyone loves them.
Joel went to Giannis went to the conference finals, and Joel Embiid took the 2019 NBA champions to 7 games.
The Warriors to 7 games in the Western Conference Finals. He made it a round further than Joel Embiid ever has. He didn't choke. He didn't choke that finals away. You even admitted it on previous shows. He didn't choke the finals away. You said if they had CP3, they would have won. It wasn't his fault. CP3 wasn't there. How's that his fault?
He choked. He's never made it past the second round.
So now you're switching your opinion because previously you had said he didn't choke. He didn't choke that series away. If CP3 was healthy, they would have won. That was your opinion earlier.
Whatever. I'm not impressed. It's a scrimmage. Whatever.
It's a scrimmage, but then why are you impressed when the Lakers do
Congrats.
Play well.
Because Dion Waiters and J.R. Smith haven't played in a while.
Okay, and James Harden is a brand new player. He's skinny James Harden. He lost so much weight. He is the best scorer in basketball right now. He can go get a bucket. Now, in these playoffs, you said it yourself, these are different than regular playoffs. You're in the bubble. You don't know what you're going to get. So you don't know. You can't use previous playoff history to determine this.
I still don't think it's going to work because he's James Harden. He's notorious for choking in the playoffs. So is Russell Westbrook. I think that whole Rockets team is going to fall apart, whether they're in a bubble or whether they're in the Toyota Center.
No, that's not. See, like, here's the thing. I don't understand why you think like he's just going to fall apart. If he has a second star like that, he is good to go. He just needs Westbrook to stay healthy. That's really all he needs. He doesn't even need him to play that well because CP3 wasn't balling out. He was just playing average, and they were still able to have success.
Well, both players are ball dominant, ball hog players, stat padding players.
CP3. CP3 is not a ball hog, but he's a ball dominant player.
And it didn't work, and I agree. It didn't work.
It didn't work. Is that why they took the Golden State Warriors to Game 7?
They didn't win, did they?
No, because CP3 got hurt. If CP3 was healthy, you said it yourself, they would have won that series.
There was 27 threes.
If CP3 played that game, you said it in yourself that they would have won.
I don't know. Look up what I said. I probably said a lot of stuff back in the day that I should have said, but wow, that made it sound really dark. I apologize. Wow. All right. Let us know what you think about this whole Rocket situation in the comments. Yeah. And Justin, I know you're more passionate about this topic coming up. We're going to talk about Bol Bol. Now, he's been in the media a lot recently because he's been doing pretty well. I mean, you look at the box scores, he's been doing well. You look at his tapes, he seems pretty well. But Justin, I sources have told me, and the sources are you telling me this, that you're not a big fan. You're not on the Bol Bol train.
No, absolutely not.
Go off,
I understand what the hype is. He's just not good. Like, you watch him play, yes, you see some cool highlights, and they love to post them on Instagram. But Alex Caruso gets cool highlights on Instagram, too, because of his looks. Just like Bol Bol gets cool highlights because of his looks. It doesn't matter how he looks out there. It matters what his efficiency is. He is not efficient. For a shooter, You realize he shot 2 for 8 from three? That's terrible. Why is he shooting 2 for 8 from three? That's just ridiculous for a guy that's supposed to be some shooter. He's not shooting efficiently. He's playing against a bunch of scrubs. He's playing teams' backups players just because he's a backup. So cool, he's dominating the backups. Let's see him go play a real team out there. He won't have the same success. He's been injury prone. A guy his size at his weight, which is basically 100 pounds, it seems like, that's just, he's not going to stay healthy. You get a guy that's just overhyped because of his height. Like, yes, he's big, but he's not that good. He isn't efficient from the field floor. He has so many turnovers per game. I don't understand. Like, he was getting like 5 turnovers a game here in the preseason. That's not all. Yes, he makes some cool blocks and has some cool dunks over people because he has long arms. That's cool, but he's not that great of a player. People are acting like he's going to be the next star and he's the Nuggets savior for this season. That is not true at all. He is not going to perform well against good teams.
I think one of the reasons why he gets all the hype is because of the name.
Oh,
he's Manute Bul's son. Obviously, he's going to get hype. For example, Tim Hardaway Jr.'s got a lot of hype when he came into the draft. You're going to get hyped up if you have the last name Bull. Like, do you remember when LeBron James Jr. said he wanted to change his number or something so people don't know who he is?
Mm-hmm.
With the last name LeBron James Jr., you're going to get that hype. So I think people will overhype him for that reason. I still think he's a solid player. I mean, he has yet to prove anything to me because he's played a couple. I mean, he hasn't played that much for the Nuggets. So it'll be interesting to see how he actually does.
Well, yeah, like, he has long arms. That's great. But his versatility on the defensive end isn't good. They put him at small forward, but any small forward out there will blow right by him or cross him up because he doesn't have the ability to stay with him out there. He's too lengthy. He can't guard that. Perimeter defense, great. But they're playing him at small forward. What's he supposed to do guarding LeBron James on the wing? LeBron James will back him down because he's much heavier, or he'll pull up on front of him and stop him. Like, Bobo would have to be in the wing on his almost pretty much on the low side of a 2-3 maybe zone. Zone's really the only thing I could see him being efficient in. Like, it's just not that good. I just don't. I don't see the hype. People are saying he's going to be so good, but what have you really seen other than a few highlights? Like, yeah, people may watch highlights, but watch the true game. He misses so many shots, has so many turnovers. Just because you see a cool highlight doesn't make him a good player.
And that's the thing. A lot of people just watch highlights.
Mm-hmm, exactly.
And they think that they can just make a judgment of a player because of their highlights. Yeah. You have to watch the whole game. You have to watch. Honestly, you have to go back and watch the game again if you really want to get a second opinion about somebody.
There's so many things you look at, and if you see, oh yeah, look at this highlight on a guy, you have this good opinion set in your mind, like, oh, you think now he's a good player, and then when you're watching him, you only look for the good plays because you think he's a good player. Like, you just have that mindset. You gotta look at it as a neutral perspective there, and when you look at it and really truly look at the efficiency of his play and the results, he's not good. His plus minus was not great. The shooting percentages were terrible. The turnovers were high. Does he have potential? Absolutely. Maybe he can turn himself around and develop a better jump shot, but that's going to be hard because of his lengthy arms. It just doesn't work well for him. Lengthy shooters, guys with big arms, just do not shoot the ball well. It's just a known fact. It's harder for him. Like, look at Shaq, other guys with long arms like that. That just doesn't work.
Big hands too. Big hands have a problem because of the ball.
Mm-hmm, exactly. And I don't understand. Like, he just doesn't fit. Like, cool, he's out at small forward. Yes, he's bigger than them, but those guys are going to blow right by him, and they're going to be much faster than him. And if you put him at center, he's just going to get bodied by whoever he plays. So I think he's actually a liability out in the court. He's not efficient. He gets a lot of turnovers, and he just isn't that great of a player. Yes, he makes cool highlights, but he's just not that good of a quality player.
I just think that if he had the name John Doe, people wouldn't even care about him. I don't even think he would have highlights.
See, I feel like he would still have a couple highlights just because he'd be more like Taco Falls. Like, Taco gets all this hype, but Taco isn't that
it's not that good. I mean, he was good in college, good in high school.
Player, but he's just not good in this game. He's kind of just like Boban. Boban gets all this love and hype, but when you actually look at the numbers, Boban just isn't that good because he can't get back in transition. He's slow. He's not that great of a player. So that's the problem there. The plus minus is terrible with him, just like Bobo and these other guys. So yes, he looks cool and he's a good name to have. He's honestly box office just based on the fact that if you have him there, you may get people to come to the game. But in terms of how good he is, not that good, in my opinion, at least.
Yeah, I remember when the Sixers had him, we would just put Boban in to guard the inbound pass. Like that was
That's
pretty much
the only thing he was useful for.
Exactly. I was going to say that. Like that's pretty much like no disrespect to Boban. I wish him all the best in Dallas, but the only thing was just because he was huge and he could just easily, guard that. So yeah, it'll be interesting.
With the playoff series, when he was playing in the playoffs, he just got exposed because teams figured out how to play with him. Yeah, he may have a good couple games here in the scrimmages, but they're scrimmages. Like, how much weight can he take? When these coaches aren't truly coaching against them, like, you know what to expect. Like, if you're playing LeBron James or James Harden, you know what you're getting out of that player because you've seen their tape 100 times. People haven't seen Bobo's tape a lot, so now they're getting tape on him. They'll be able to defend him even better, and they know what he's going to do. So they'll have more to use against him. And he's already not efficient from the floor. He's already getting a lot of turnovers. He's already getting exposed on the defensive end when he's not underneath the rim. It's only going to get worse, actually, unless he develops his game and gets stronger.
Yeah. These scrimmages remind me of a lot of, like, preseason football. Like, when you watch a team – like, when you watch an NFL team in the preseason, you don't automatically get a judgment of how that team's going to do.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
I remember I watched the Eagles-Packers preseason. It was when we first got Sam Bradford. Sam Bradford went 7 for 7, straight down the field, touchdown. I was like, all right, the Eagles are winning the Super Bowl this year. And Sam Bradford ended up being a total bust. So
exactly.
Preseason truly doesn't matter. I mean, you can go 0-4 and win the Super Bowl. It's been seen in the NFL. So you can go 0-3 in these scrimmages and win the championship. It's not impossible. So who knows? There's still 8 regular season games, and then there's still multiple postseason games. Just because it's not like it's the NFL playoffs where you lose one and you're done. You get 7 games here, so you could lose the first one. You're not done after you lose the first one. You still got 6 more games left in the series, possibly. So it's not over.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You're pretty good at breaking down football. Do you have like a show or something where like you break down like football, maybe baseball?
Baseball, football, a little basketball.
Do you have a show like that?
A little bit of everything, yeah. I actually do. I have a podcast, Blow It Up, with my good friend Jake Lavely, and we're putting out episodes kind of like more of a debate style, kind of like a first take or undisputed type show. And we just talk about all the mostly big four, little hockey in there, but mostly baseball, basketball, and football. So definitely give that a look if you're into those sports.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, if you're a fan of all four, definitely check it out. We'll put a link in the description for that. But yeah, we're just sticking to basketball right here. So we just got a report today. Moving on, we just got a report today about Zion returning back to the bubble. He had to leave for a family emergency family event. Yes, and then he came back, had to quarantine, obviously. Now he's back. So, Justin, do you think Zion's ready for this season, or do you think he's going to be a little bit out of shape? He's going to be a little, maybe distracted by this family emergency he had. What are your thoughts?
I saw some videos of him before he left for this family emergency when he first arrived there, and he looked good. He looked in shape, so I'm not too worried about that. I'm just worried about his experience. I mean, I don't think there's a true – I guess J.J. Redick's the true leader of that team. Maybe Jrue Holiday. They don't have a guy that's truly experienced in deep playoffs. They don't have a guy like LeBron James who knows what he's doing. And the way LeBron James has been a leader for this Lakers team, I think gives them a huge advantage. He knows how to win a championship, and he's done it multiple times. Same thing with the Clippers. Kawhi Leonard's won championships. He knows how to do it. These guys on the Pelicans, they haven't done it before, so I think that just puts them at a disadvantage right there. Zion's already missing. Without Zion, this team is not that great. I mean, they were barely a playoff team without him. I think with him, it obviously boosts them up to with him throughout the year, they probably been like a 6th seed in the West. They would have been better, obviously. So him playing gives them a boost, but I'm not sure how much it gives them because I just don't think they have had the chemistry that they needed to gel. Just because he's missed so many games already, I just don't think they're where they need to be as a team. Because if you look back at the numbers when Zion was playing, everybody else's numbers kind of went down there to fill in for him, and I think it was kind of a little rocky there. Like Brandon Ingram had a significant drop off in numbers, in his numbers once Zion joined. Lonzo, all those guys, their numbers weren't quite as good with Zion there. So I'm interesting to see how well they play with each other, especially Brandon Ingram, because Brandon Ingram was huge for this Pelicans team this year. So with his numbers dropping with Zion there, I'm curious because when we saw Brandon Ingram with the Lakers, we thought he was going to be great. Then LeBron showed up and his numbers dropped off significantly. So if you have a Zion player who many people are comparing to a LeBron James, Brandon Ingram's numbers fall off drastically when he played with LeBron. So if you think Zion's a LeBron, that's an issue for Brandon Ingram there. I'd be worried with Brandon Ingram. So I'm just not sold on Zion. Like, it's been 20 games. Yes, he could be a good player, but I'm just not sold on him yet. I haven't seen enough to be sold. He could end up being the best player in NBA history, but right now, 20 games into his career, I can't make that call to say he's that good right now. But he does have an impact on the Pelicans. If he doesn't play, they will lose that game to the Jazz without him. And that's a rough start for them because they need every win they can get in these 8 games.
Absolutely. Yeah, I completely agree. You know, playing 19 games and the statistics, you know, they were good, but they weren't like outstanding. I think they were like 20 points, 5 rebounds, 5 assists. So it wasn't like amazing numbers. So yeah, obviously they'll do better. I think Brandon Ingram, he will get in the way of Brandon Ingram because I feel like the Pelicans are more targeted towards Zion than they are Brandon Ingram, despite Brandon Ingram's success this year. But it'll be interesting to see. I think they have a good shot of pushing the Grizzlies out of that 8th seed. So I think the Pelicans will make the playoffs.
Really? Yeah. You think the Pelicans make it?
I think the Pelicans make it over the Grizzlies if Zion comes back and plays and lives up to the hype.
I'm still thinking I'm big on the Trailblazers. I think I understand why you picked the Pelicans, and I honestly think they could make it too, just based off of how easy their schedule is. But playoff Dame is a different story. Dame's very clutch in the playoffs, and you get another capable guard with CJ. Nurkic is finally healthy. I think if they had Dame healthy and Nurkic healthy, they would have been a top 5 team in the West this season. So with them, they got the interior defense to kind of shut down a Zion and Nurkic and Whiteside. They have the capability to. I'm not saying they will, but they at least have the capability to slow him down, you know, not make him put up 25 and 10. I think he'd struggle to do that. And you got guys that can dominate Lonzo Ball. Like Damian Lillard would go off on Lonzo because Lonzo's defense isn't that great. So I think they'd cause a mismatch there. And I think if the Trailblazers get in, they could be a problem for the Lakers or whoever they play in the playoffs.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think it'll be a tight race against Portland and New Orleans. I could go either way. I am very confident in Dame. I think Dame is angry. I think Dame wants it. Can I say the same thing about the Pelicans? I don't know because, you know, they really shouldn't even be here. Let's be honest here. So it'll be interesting to see.
Yeah.
So let us know what you think. Let us know if you're all about the Zion hype, if you're not sold, if you don't believe in the hype, like Justin and I personally don't.
I don't either.
I don't either. Our last topic of the day, we saved the best team for last. The New York Knicks. They just got a brand new coach. It seems like they get a coach every goddamn year. It's part of my language, but they got Tom Thibodeau, former coach of the Minnesota Timberwolves. Now he's with the Knicks. Justin, how do you think Tom Thibodeau will affect the Knicks?
I'm truly torn on this because it's either going to go one way or the other. It's going to be horrific or amazing. There's no room in between. I'm not sure how these players will handle his intensity and style of coaching. So it could be fantastic. They could adapt to it really well because he's definitely different than most NBA coaches. His defensive intensity that he likes, just how he's treated some young players because they're a young team. the player either does really well and flourishes in that system or does terrible. So a guy like RJ Barrett, who's had success, may now fall off because of this. But you may bring in a guy like a LaMelo Ball who would thrive under this, and I'm not saying he will, but he could, and then that sets him up for good success. It's early. I want to see how they do in the draft before I make a prediction on how they do. I think they could be a good team if they get a guy like LaMelo Ball. I'm curious who they get because I think they need a point guard. I'm not sold on like Frank Nicolina, I believe is how you pronounce that. Nicolita?
Tequila,
Yeah, however you pronounce his name, that
Tequila.
guy. Yeah, I'm not sold on him. I think they do need a point guard. I think him. I said this: LaMelo Ball, R.J. Barrett. You still got Kevin Knox there. Mitchell Robinson. I think that's it's a solid young core that they have there. And they got the first round picks for Randall, and they got the pick or Ball Walk. They got the first round pick for Morris. So I think they got some assets there too. They could maybe trade for a veteran or sign a guy, and depending on what they do with that draft pick, who they get, they could be a good team. And Thibs, he could be really good for them or really bad. There's no in between. That team's either going to be terrible again or they're going to be a very good up and coming young team. I don't really see any in between. These players are either going to flourish under the system or they're going to fail. There's no in between.
Mm-hmm. Here's the thing. I think as far as Tibbs coaching this team, I think it's phenomenal signing. I think Tibbs is amazing with young talent. You know, you saw this in Minnesota when he was with Cat and with Wiggins. You know, he has played, he has coached young players for the majority of his career, and that's just what he does best. So he has all the young pieces. You know, he's got RJ Barrett, he's got Mitchell Robinson to coach, he's got Kevin Knox to coach. So I think he's in his element with this New York Knicks roster. I'm just worried about the front office, and I'm worried about the ownership. I'm worried about James Dolan. As long as they keep everything intact, as long as they don't make any stupid decisions, which James Dolan normally does, as long as they keep all that, as long as James Dolan doesn't do anything radical or anything stupid, I think this could work out well. And I think the Knicks could be obviously, I don't think they're going to make the playoffs anytime soon, but I think that this will be a step in the right direction for this New York Knicks team.
Yeah, and I mean, you mentioned the young talent. See, yes and no. You have guys like Cat and D Rose who have flourished under that system, and you have other guys like Andrew Wiggins who have been diminished because of that coaching style. So I think it depends on how the players react to it. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
You have guys that he's a hard-nosed defense first, kind of get in your face type of coach, and some players like that, and some players don't. And I think as a coach, he has struggled to coach players that don't appreciate his style. He's struggled to flip the switch, like from being that guy that's hard nosed on you 24/7 to that friendly coach that's there to support you. I think he hasn't been able to quite find that rhythm yet. I think he's more so it's his way or who cares about you? I'm going to go the other way with it and I'll play somebody else that likes my style. So I think would he change his style, because how many more chances is he going to get? He was successful with them in Chicago, but he was just okay with them in Minnesota. He wasn't that fantastic with them.
Well,
so
Minnesota.
I'm not sold on it.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say Minnesota was an absolute dumpster fire because of that whole Jimmy Butler situation.
Mm-hmm,
So he gets a lot of crap for that. But go ahead.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So I'm not sure. This may be his last chance with a head coaching position here. So will he be willing to adapt his coaching style at all? Is he still going to stick to that hard-nosed style of coaching?
Yeah, and that's the thing that people criticize him for in Chicago, even because he would overplay Derrick Rose, and that's why he kind of. I don't want to say Tibbs takes all the blame for
He
Derrick
obviously
Rose.
takes some of it.
Absolutely. So he definitely takes some of the blame for overplaying, because even like Joakim Noah had injury trouble in Chicago. So
a lot of those players did because they were playing 40 plus minutes a game every night. So no player is built for that type of wear and tear on their body. So it makes sense. Now, this is a very young team with a lot of players. So if you're saying giving RJ Barrett 40 minutes a night right now, that may actually be helpful for him, or a LaMelo Ball or a Mitchell Robinson. That may be helpful for those players. But down the stretch, as they get older, and if they're injury prone, that's not somebody I want playing 40 minutes a game. So will he be willing to adjust that coaching style?
Mhm. It'll be very interesting to see. Like I said, just as long as James Dolan doesn't do anything stupid, hopefully he sells the team, because I know the Knicks are in
No,
the
I would.
Sixers division. I hate, I don't hate the Knicks. I just feel bad for them, honestly, just because of how
Well, I think most people do.
horribly managed. Yeah, they've just been horribly managed, and it just sucks. Sell the
It's a
team.
shame for the NBA just because it's such a big market location, and
It's New York City.
with them being bad, it's just a loss for everybody in the aspect of a big market team sucking. I mean, when we saw the Lakers and Celtics weren't elite anymore, when they took their steps down from being elite there for the couple years, it took a toll on the NBA just because those fans didn't necessarily care as much. I guess the ratings just weren't as good because those teams had such a big market that without them, it just wasn't quite the same. So,
Hmm. And they've got a beautiful arena. They have, they've got some
MSG is
pretty good.
great.
MSG is an amazing arena. It's beautiful. It's right smack in the middle of Manhattan. They have some great alumni: Walt Frazier, Patrick Ewing, Bernard King. So just the fact that James Dolan just terribly owns that team, and for God's sake, just sell it already.
I agree
It,
with
it
that.
it sucks. It really does.
I agree with that.
All right, well, that's pretty much all the news there is for this week. We want to thank you guys so much for tuning in. Hope you guys enjoyed this episode, and stay tuned. We're going to keep dropping a bunch of episodes now that we actually have stuff to talk about. We did this whole bi-weekly thing, 2 episodes a week, but now the fact that there's going to be games on every night, almost 5 to 6 games a day, we're going to drop a lot more episodes. So definitely stay tuned. Thank you guys so much for watching, and have a good one. Take care.